All right, so now we're going to look at some rounding review. And the first thing we're going to do with this ginormous number that we have right here is write down the place value of each digit. So I'm going to rotate myself sideways. I'm going to be upside down for a little bit, and we're going to go from there. So if we start right at our decimal point, that 9 is in which place value? That 9 is in the ones place value. The ones. After the ones comes that tens place. And then going furthermore, where the 6, that gives us the hundreds. Where the 7 is the thousands. The 5 is in the 10,000s. And then last but not least, that 3 is in the 100,000s. And yes, naturally it does continue going after that, obviously, but those numbers go up to infinity. But we're just going to stop at 100,000 for now. So those are the typical, whole number ones, going bigger. But now we need to look at to the left, just kidding, that's the right, to the right of the decimal point. Because that's what we're going to be using a lot more in class this year, is rounding with those decimal points. So the first one to the right after the decimal point is the tenths. Not to confuse tenths with tens from the other side. So tenths, T-E-N-T-H-S. It has that thus at the end there. The 4 is in the hundredths. So just like the hundreds, but hundredths, there's no extra D in there. Hundredths. What was it? And the 9 is in the thousandths with that THS. Thousandths. And last but not least, that 2, and this is as far as we'll go, is the 10,000ths. So very similar to the whole number ones that I did in red, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s. Only difference being that there's no one-iths place, and that's probably because one-iths doesn't really sound good. So, all right. So we got our place values. Use that to help you when we're talking about stuff. Example 1. This is my favorite question here because this is money related. When I round money, what do I always round money to? Well, let's use blue. Money always gets rounded to the nearest hundredths. And that's because when we're talking money, you can only go up to 99 cents, right? We don't talk in money in terms of, I have 100 cents for you. No, that's $1. So rounding to the nearest cent, that would be the nearest hundredths, like we just talked about. So the 8 is in the hundredths place. That causes me or tells me to look at the 7. The 7 tells me to bump it up. So that would turn to, or that would round to $25.99. Example 2, round that number to the nearest tenth. Well, tenths is the 0.9, is the 9. Obviously, all of them are 9. So I look at the one next to it. That 9 tells me to go up. Which would cause my 9 to turn into a 10, which would cause that 9 to turn into a 10, which would cause that 9 to turn into a 10, which would then cause the last 9 to turn into a 10, leaving us with simply, leaving us with 1,000.0. Because they are specifically asking us to go to the nearest tenth here, you do want to have that 0.0 there, even though it doesn't really make a difference. Because technically, if you just wrote 1,000, 1,000 is not to the nearest tenths place because there is no tenths place there. So make sure you've got that 0.0. Example 3. Now, this one is where you've got to be careful with your reading. Don't confuse example 3 with example 2. Tenths versus tens. Two very different places. In example 3, the nearest tens, that's the 7 is the 1, so the 5 is in the tens, tells me to look at the 7, and that 7 tells me to go up. So my first 5 stays the same. My second 5 goes up to a 6. And then I can just fill everything in. Boom. 560. And if you want to put the 0.00, you can. But 560 is fine because it's talking to the nearest tens. So we don't need to have any decimal points. All right, there we go. Made it through Unit 0. That's the last lesson. Now you just got to look at the homework for that and you're golden. All right, ta-ta for now.